This week's quick reminder is found in Hebrews chapter 13, and I'll be reading from verses 1 to 6. Let love of the brethren continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by this some have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember the prisoners as though in prison with them, and those who are ill-treated, since you yourselves also are in the body. Marriage is to be held in honor among all, and the marriage bed is to be undefiled. For fornicators and adulterers, God will judge. Make sure that your character is free from the love of money, being content with what you have, for he himself has said, I will never desert you, nor will I ever forsake you. So that we confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What will man do to me? In this passage, we find the proof of faith, what faith looks like as it is fleshed out in us. And it looks like this. It's others first and no security in ourself. Which reminds me of Philippians 2, verse 3, where we read, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. There's a familiar story of George Washington when he was the general during the Revolutionary War, who was riding his horse through camp. He came across struggling soldiers trying to get a beam into place while their corporal stood and barked out orders to them. Well, Washington got off of his horse, he went over to the men, and he helped them pick the beam up, get it into place, and all the time the corporal is yelling orders out to all of them, including the general. When the work was finished, George Washington got back on his horse. He turned and looked at the corporal and told him, the next time you need help, don't hesitate to ask your commander-in-chief, and I'll be there. It was only then that the corporal realized that he thought himself more important than the general. And sometimes I have to confess I'm guilty of the same. I see myself as being more important than others. Don't they see my hurt? Don't they see my position? How many times does this happen to you? According to John chapter 15, love for others, or the giving of yourself for the benefit of others, is the fruit shown as we abide in Christ. It's the proof of our abiding in Christ and not abiding in ourselves. And after talking about faith in chapters 10 and 11, then encouraging the reader to look away from all else and be fixed only on Jesus in chapter 12, the writer of this book, Hebrews, then describes the reality of the one who by faith only looks to Jesus. And we find that it's shown with love. First of all, in verse 1, we see love of the brethren, which is Philadelphia love. It's the love of brothers, or we call it brotherly love. It's shown, the same word is shown in Romans 12:10 as giving preference to others. It reads there, be devoted to one another in brotherly love, give preference to one another in honor. And then in verse 2, we see hospitality, the love of hospitality, so love of strangers. 1 Peter 4:9 says, be hospitable to one another without complaint. And so it's hospitality from the heart. In verse 3, we're told to remember, again, show brotherly love. Remember the prisoners. as though you were in prison. And then in verse 4, we find that marriage is to be held in honor and to be undefiled, which shows agapeo love. And according to Ephesians 5, this love is shown sacrificially. It's there we read in verse 25, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church. And how did he love? It goes on to say this, and gave himself up for her. Sacrificial love. In verse 5, we find that this faith in Christ is shown by living free from the love of money. And that's one word in the Greek, and it refers to not being desirous or greedy for money, not loving wealth. And in Luke 12:15, we read, then he said to them, beware and be on your guard against every form of greed, every form of greed. For not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions. Wow. This is a lot. If you really honestly look at this and take this in, this is a lot for us to deal with, because in the flesh, we want to live the opposite. We want people to see my hurt, and we want them to conform to that instead of us being mindful, remembering they hurt, and conform to this, minister to this. Yes, it's sacrificial. Yes, sometimes it's inconvenient, but it is the reality of Christ living in us. So how is this all possible? How can we live this way? Well, we can't. We prove it every day. How is it possible then? It is the result of Christ living in you, known by faith in him. In the second part of verse 5, we're encouraged with this quote from Deuteronomy 31, verse 6, where he says, I will never desert you, nor will I ever forsake you. This is possible because of his presence within the believer. He never leaves us, those who have placed their faith in Christ. In Matthew 28, verse 20, Jesus says to the disciples, he's teaching them to observe he tells them, teach those that you minister to observe all that I command you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. He is with us. In Acts chapter 18 and verse 9, the Lord appears to Paul and he tells him this, this is chapter 18, verses 9 and 10 of Acts. And the Lord said to Paul, in the night by a vision, do not be afraid any longer, but go on speaking and do not be silent, for I am with you, and no man will attack you in order to harm you, for I have many people in this city. And then in verse 6, here in verse 6 of our text, the writer quotes from Psalm 118, verse 6, with the reminder that the Lord is my helper. He is your helper. Now, it doesn't mean he picks up the other end of the heavy load that you're struggling with. What does it mean? Well, in Philippians 4:13, Paul says this, I can do all things. I can love. I can love when I don't feel like loving. I can love when it costs me everything. I can love. I can live the life of Christ. I can show my faith in Jesus. I can do all things through him, because of him, on account of him, who strengthens me. This is his life. Rely on him. Are you displaying proof of your faith in Christ? Are you loving others? My name is Kelly Daugherty, and I'm the host of the His Hill podcast. This has been one of the quick reminders which we release every Wednesday morning. If you're interested in hearing our longer episodes, you'll find a new one every Thursday morning. Now, I can be reached by email. If you'd like to get in touch, you can do so that way. And the address is Kelly, Kelly, at hishill.org. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus.